So first of all, I would like to say hello to everyone. I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces. Hola a todos, todas a todas. It is my pleasure with you to really share with you a short biographical context for understanding Maria Montessori idea about feminism, about social justice, and children. Many of you are familiar with her biography, so this talk is to shed only some light on some specific ideas that I believe are important to bring to light on Women's Day. I have been reading the reports of the United Nations, and as Faye was saying, we're living an unprecedented time of suffering for many, many people all over the world, especially women. The pandemic's impact on women and girls, including the impact on extreme poverty, employment, health, unpaid care, and violence against women and girls is immense. I want you to pay attention that globally, 70% of health workers and first responders are women. And yet, they are not at par with the male counterparts in terms of paid salaries. The pandemic will push 92 million people into extreme poverty by 2021. 47 million of those are women and girls. We can have a whole conference about all the suffering. But it is true that we're making progress. You already saw all the pictures of so many women that have influenced other women to do some work. And they are in better positions and they have the task to help other women as well. Yes, there are changes, but still there is much work to do. We, great-grandmothers, grandmothers, mothers, teachers, women, everyone need to support each other and help women to be independent and be happy. It is my hope that this talk will inspire you to look at yourself and make the necessary steps for bettering your life and that of those around you. So I will start now. So as you know, Maria Montessori was born in 1970 during the unification of Italy. So you can imagine during that time, it was the passage from a right-wing government to a left-wing government. So a new wave of liberals and thinkers started a movement to change civil liberties, public education, voting rights, and to implement many reforms, including in public education. It was the first time there were going to be schools for girls. But even though the Catholic Church had already had most of the schools and they were still separated boys from girls. So Maria Montessori in younger years were influenced by the contradictions and differences in her time. Illiteracy and chaos dominated the whole country where she was born. So education and the elimination of poverty was a hope, which has not been yet accomplished in our times after more than 100 years. A great love of mathematics was awakened in her, possibly by her father, who was an accountant. She fell in love with books through her mother, who was a teacher, an elementary teacher and a well-educated woman. But from a young age, she had a strong will and was determined to challenge conventional rules in order to acquire the knowledge she was seeking. And that's why she studied in technical schools. She studied because she wanted to be an engineer. So that's why the love for mathematics came. She studied in schools, you can see in her biography. So influenced by daily experiences, she decides to pursue a medical career with the opposition of her father, who decides not to speak to her if she enters into the university. Anyway, she enrolled at the University of Rome as a student of physics, mathematics, and natural sciences. Despite countless obstacles, if you read all what she went through, it's amazing. In those days, it was not only unprecedented, but somewhat unthinkable for a woman to enter the medical career in Rome. While being in the university, just as many of the social activists of our time, Maria Montessori began earnestly pushing against injustice on behalf of others when she was a college student. As one of the few females to breach the male-dominated citadel that was the Italian medical school, her path was full of painful anecdotes of men bullying her, making jokes of her condition as a woman, dissecting cadavers. Also, she being separated from men in classes or discriminated against to the point of not being able to receive the recognition of having the highest degree when obtaining her diploma as a doctor. Because of this final slide, she did not attend her own graduation. But still, she had a beautiful party with all the family and she enjoyed it. I believe that being in the university invited her to be an activist, a socialist, and a liberal, as though were the prevailing ideas in campus with both students and teachers and the faculty. We know that she continued throughout her life wielding the power of her growing sphere of professional influence to release long-standing shackles of prejudice and inequality that prevented the oppressed from fulfilling their highest potential. She was a doctor in medicine. Maria Montessori challenged inequality in her personal life by overcoming all kinds of obstacles and proving to society that women were as intellectually able as men. You can see some of the articles that they talk about this, the Maria Montessori, the scientist of the day, when she received a diploma that has to be changed because there was only diplomas for men, not for women. Now, Montessori experiences and the obstacles she surmounted led her to stand up for the rights of women. She was against gender stereotypes and inequality and participated in many national and international feminist congresses, including the 1896 Congress in Berlin. She also contributed to magazines from feminist associations as well as newspapers. So she even founded with other women, Per la Donna, a feminist association. Now, although her father publicly opposed her decision, deep down inside, I believe he must have considered her work of importance, as he collected a large amount of articles in publications and pasted them into a journal, which he later gifted to Maria. I have had the opportunity through Renilde Montessori, who was the granddaughter of Maria Montessori, to see this album and to receive the pictures of the album. So I was able to read all the articles that were written in that beautiful memory album. At the Women's Congress in Berlin, she spoke about very important issues, such as the importance of women education. Young girls need to be educated. Also, the problems encountered in the war in Africa. I'm so glad that Ama is going to talk about that. And the solution of the problem of illiteracy of women in Italy. She also spoke about women's labor and the unjust salary they receive in comparison to men, and children also working with women in labor camps. One idea that I found very interesting when reading all these articles was that children's problems come from their family environment. The emancipation of women will bring healthier families. So this is something that we have to think of because that's the only way to change things. Now, while reading her books, it seems that the stereotypes for women and children were parallel. I'm going just to mention some that we know. For example, women, they say women are less intelligent. Feminism is femininity is incompatible with career. There are many ideas about women not being able to make financial decisions for themselves. And if they are going to generate their own income, maybe they will not obey their husbands or gaining power in their marriage or in society, and they will not take care of their children. There are so many stereotypes and so many countries that still are holding them. What about children? In the children, it's the same thing. Nobody believes that children are less, they say that children are not intelligent. They are born with 86 billion neurons. That childhood is incompatible to dignity, and you do not respect them. Children cannot concentrate. We have seen newborns concentrating. They do not know, they say that they cannot choose meaningful work or they cannot make decisions for themselves if they are given choices. We can prove this is not true. And what is worse is that they feel there is a stereotype that they say they might gain power in their families or school or in society and will be difficult to manage. Yes, because they will make choices. They will make choices and they will choose the best things for them. Also, there was the International Congress in Women in London. And I found another wonderful sentence, another wonderful sentences that you can read. It says, women's social victory will be a maternal victory aimed at improving and strengthening the human species. She's talking about how mothers have to take care of themselves and their babies. They have to think about the babies in a different way. So, in one of the conferences that she gave, and it was in a magazine, a conference that she gave, and a conference that was in Italian. I remember that I read Italian. I learned Italian when I was doing all this like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And Carolina Montessori was so kind and generous to translate a paragraph in English, so I could just share this with you. In that conference, women must study a conference, she says, a profession, to develop their intellect so they can choose what they do with their lives. And the most interesting is that women must not argue with their hearts, but with their brains. They should engage in discussions. In short, practice modern feminism by working together alongside men who will then realize that women are an asset. So, as you can see, she was ahead of our time. Of course, she was working in a psychiatric clinic, and seeing how children with differences were treated pushed her to fight for the rights of children. She profoundly studied them and was able to understand how they also were excluded from society. Like women, she committed herself to working on behalf of the marginalized. I believe that Montessori found her why early in her life. She was motivated to work for social justice because she had specific experiences where she endured prejudice and had to move forward in spite of obstacles created by stereotypes. We can have many experiences like that. We have had as well that feeling of injustice and of and endure prejudice. Modern day Montessori educators have a big task in front of them to find their why. Why do you want to be teachers? And you can do that by recalling experiences in your own life when someone misunderstood them or made an incorrect assumption about them based on race, on gender, or being from a different culture, and having that feeling of being stereotyped. Montessori's unusual experience during early life helped her to recognize the unequal treatment of women and children. And she used the specific skills learned during her medical training to work for what we know now as social justice on behalf of these two populations. So let me give you some ideas. One was women. She was via scientific feminism. We know that she discovered that men and women have equal brains for intellectual work. The capacity is equal, but it all depends on opportunities. Children, of course, via her educational system, based on objective information, observation. Who are you? She questioned one day while observing children working in the Casa de Bambini when she was starting in the slums of Rome. She has a story where she says, I was sitting in that room and suddenly I look at the children and they say, who are you? Who are you? You can find that in the book, The Secret of Childhood. She was able to find the secret of childhood. She says, I just gave them an environment and they goes gold because until now it's not enough recognized. With scientific feminism, she stood up for suffrage. And as a scientist, devoted all her energy to make science an instrument for female emancipation and children's justice. She discussed all aspects of female possibilities, including moral sexuality and hygiene, not only for washing their hands. It was really a study on female hygiene. She also had the reforms necessary to give voice to women and to allow them to access leadership roles. As well, something very different in that time, the choice of maternity and liberating them from preconceived ideas pertaining to domestic jobs. Who says that? Who has imposed that on women? And talking about her environments and the casa. One specific way that I feel that she addressed inequality was by having boys and girls side by side, doing all the same activities, including practical life. You can see children washing clothes, washing dishes, enjoying that because that responds to human activities that they will need even when they go to college, when they are in high school, wherever. They also, she also had mixed ages in the same classroom. And this allowed any child, regardless of age, to use materials that match their ability. I believe it was an attempt to correct age discrimination or labeling and to promote inclusion. Children also had the opportunity to work with the material for 3 years in the same classroom without being corrected or being embarrassed when repeating something they didn't know or they did not remember. She supported the child's self-construction by means of diverse activities, not just listening through words, but acting in the environment. That these were activities that responded to individual needs. She also had difference. She understood the difference in learning, and they are different stages of development. I believe the two treasures that we have to really be so grateful is the idea of the prepared environment and the prepared adult. There is nothing that in the world that has so much power. So she believed that society could become significantly less prejudiced if children are given this meaningful first-hand experience from the moment of birth. Classrooms that serve a wider spectrum of abilities, behavioral expressions, and diverse cultural backgrounds will require that the adults act from a genuine belief that we are all created equal. We are the human species. Children unconsciously create their personality with whatever reaches from the outside world. They internalize the environment and connect it with their own potentialities. All prejudices, bias, and stereotypes are absorbed through the environment in which the children live. So her struggle for me was not only a class struggle. It is a liberation on gender and generational struggles. It is not a struggle for power, no. It's not a struggle for control or possession. It is a struggle for liberating the human mind and recognizing the wisdom of nature for survival, the continuity of the human species. So by liberating the woman to know herself, she's removing preconceived ideas about children. And this is very important. Her vision liberated to follow all natural laws of development by liberating their mothers from misguided preconceptions about the early childhood, while her philosophy of human development liberated mothers to prescribe domestic life at home, which is a gender inequality, by liberating the children to flourish independently in a brilliant new system of care environments known as the Casa de Bambini. You can work and your children can be in a beautiful place with beautiful adults that can think. Each cause nourishes the other, elevating the women and child, uplifting those around them. In short, social justice and feminism represented two sides of the same coin. Montessori defended the concept of women working in professions outside the home, describing this work as an instrument of elevation, of valorization, and collaboration with men for the progress of society. You know, when the vital role that women play in the betterment of society can be fully recognized both by men and especially by women, humanity will make a huge step forward. I think her passions were ignited by her direct personal experience as a minority whose potential was chronically underestimated and who was ultimately misunderstood by her own society. See, we are still asking for her 150 years. Also, it was a motivation for social justice and a quest for peace. That was what motivated her looking for that social justice and her quest for peace. By disproving again preconceived ideas about children. She was able to demonstrate that the child is a promise for peace, for justice, equality, respect, and love. I know that I decided to tell you this sentence because I think that what people often don't realize is that Montessori regarded the rights of children inextricably linked to the rights of women. In her mind, child welfare and gender equality were two hands clasped for eternity, that together must rise or together would fall to the depths of degradation, dragging all of society with them. This is very important that you understand the task that we have in front. It is my hope that her work and legacy will inspire women to discover in themselves the strength to seek opportunities, to feel free to pursue their interests, and to acquire a level of peace that only comes from fundamental independence, so that they can be emotionally healthy when interacting with children. Our task as educators is more important than ever. We need to create environments where children are given meaningful first-hand experiences of other cultures, are seen as unique individuals worthy of respect, are protected from stereotypes, and most importantly, are unconditionally accepted and loved. And I think that's what I want to say to you today. So thank you. It has been my pleasure to share this presentation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Faye, and thank you, Silvia, for your truly inspiring presentation. I learned so much about Maria Montessori from your presentation, and I really especially enjoyed what you said about the deep interlinking of the rights of children with the rights of women. You put it so well, because I think that it's something that a lot of us feel, but perhaps have not been able to say so clearly. I wanted to just first thank you all for being here wherever you are. It's really great to be together, even if it's virtually. We're still together and we can still connect somehow. I hope you can see me well. I'm trying to do something creative with the lights because it was dark. It was getting dark as we were talking. Then suddenly I realized it's quite dark where I am. So apologies for that if it's not nice to look at me. Usually it's quite nice to look at me. I'm kidding. Okay, so I wanted to tell a story, something that happened quite recently. About 2 days ago, I brushed my hair neatly and I hosted a reunion of women leaders. So women from the African continent who are aspiring to take the highest positions in public leadership, so become presidents and so on. And I told my 8-year-old daughter, I'm going to work with 3 presidents. I'm so excited. There will be 3 women presidents that I will be talking to. And she reacted a bit like, yeah, okay, whatever. There she goes again. She's going to talk a lot. Who cares, you know? But then in the afternoon, she had some friends playing at our house. And then she, in front of her friends, asked me, why do you look like that? And I said, well, you know, I had to work. And I didn't mention what I was doing. But then she did mention to her friends, it was that talk with the 3 presidents, right? And she let the silence fall so that her friends would know that her mother had just spoken to 3 presidents. So I wanted to share this because previously someone interviewed me for a podcast and they asked me, what was the biggest compliment that you ever got? And I mentioned that I had been hosting this leadership trajectory with these leaders, with all these women from across the continent, Nobel Peace Prize winner, all these people. And it was a very difficult thing for me to do. And you can imagine it was quite nerve-wracking, all this high-level stuff. And my answer to the question was, the biggest compliment is that those women clapped for me. But if I had been asked this question today, I have to say that the biggest compliment is that moment that my daughter asked me this question and showed me without a lot of words that in fact she is proud of me. And this is or at least that's what I make of it. It's likely that she's not, but just for the story, let's say that this is the case. And I find that important to share in the year that a lot of us as parents have been. So a lot of us have taken on the role, the hard role of having to educate our children this last year because schools have been closed down. And a lot of us have been faced with this very tough choice. So, or task, it's not a choice, but you know, the thing is that we send our children to school and then we can go to work and we call ourselves empowered. And I can go and talk with presidents and do big, important things, you know, talk to leaders and come up with plans, great creative things. But this personal task I had of teaching my child was so confronting because I, like many parents, realized that I don't have the tools and I don't have the ability to fit into what is expected, but I do have the ability to communicate with my child. And I think a lot of us learned so much about ourselves in this year in which this unprecedented change took place. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about this as parents. So not only women, but fathers and mothers, or people who are even helping their neighbors' children. They don't have children of their own, but you know, we've all come together in incredible ways to support each other. And a lot of people have not had that support, but if I've also seen a lot of beautiful things happen across the globe, where people have really been the village that is needed to raise a child. And I think that we really need these partnerships between men and women to create better societies, because that's what it ultimately means. Probably to educate a child is to really let a person fully flourish, thrive, be nurtured, be who they can be fully without the pressures of assessment, right? You don't want assessment to stand in the way of a child fully flourishing in whatever direction they may need or may want to. Now, this story actually links to an experience I had at the beginning of the pandemic. So last year, as I mentioned, I had this great honor of working with the former president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the former president of Malawi, Madam Joyce Banda, and the former president of Central African Republic, Miss Catherine Samba Panza. They had invited 15 women from the African continent, across the African continent, women who are bold, women who have courage to strive to take up more public leadership positions, to have more influence. And they really wanted to bring these women together to, in these circles, share leadership skills, strategies, ideas, how to gain more influence in the world where policies are made that keep women out, that might not be the best for children, and so on. How to bring these women together, but then also to grow that, to become a nurturing network of women who bring more women along, so that it becomes increasingly normal to have women in positions of power. Now, or power or influence. Now, what happened is that just when we were all finally coming together, things started to shut down. So around the world, people couldn't travel. It was clear that the COVID was really a pandemic. So it was affecting everyone around the world. And we'd spend all this time coming up with an agenda about leadership, about strategies, and so on. But then on the day, we had to change everything. We changed it and we started with a panel about leading in the dark. What does it mean when you don't know where you're going? And this was, for me, a wonderful change in the program, because I learned so much from these women. Mind you, for those of you who don't know, we were in Liberia, Monrovia, where in 2014, under the leadership of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the Ebola crisis had taken place, and it was really bad in Liberia, but also in Guinea. I was living in Ghana at the time. And so you can imagine that President Johnson Sirleaf wanted people to talk about this because she saw it coming. She saw that this was going to be devastating for all of us. So, because, mind you, when I arrived in Monrovia, Liberia was ready, was way more ready than the Netherlands. When I left the Netherlands, Schiphol was crowded, everything was normal, people were still hugging and kissing and gathering close to each other. By the time I got to Monrovia, there were healthcare workers at the airport. You would not enter Liberia without giving your temperature, giving your health information, where you are going, washing your hands. This was because of this previous experience of managing Ebola. uh, President Johnson Sirleaf had managed this and wanted to have this discussion with these leaders to really arm people to go back to their countries and really empower communities to be able to take the lead in the solutions that were needed. I want this to sink in because, prior to this year, or prior to this moment, perhaps you would have accepted that in Africa things don't work, that in Africa people would die in their millions, right? Because we would not be ready. Our healthcare systems are weak, our sensitization systems are weak, our education system is weak. But these women were ready. These countries were ready because we are resilient. Our societies are resilient. We've faced so many hardships and have had ways to iterate solutions, to think of solutions, and to be ready. So I'm not saying that African countries have not paid the price, and a lot of people have lost their loved ones. But I really wanted to highlight uh, this leadership, to dare, to be courageous, to be bold, and to say, you know what, let's talk about leading in the dark, because we don't know where we're going. We don't know what it means to lead, but you do have to be bold. You do have to be courageous to take those first steps and let people follow you. You have to trust your gut. You have to stay focused, and you have to forge ahead. You have to go on. And this is something that I think a lot of women, no matter where you are, have faced this, the strength of a woman. Women are often described, depicted, thought of as sort of these soft, cuddly, fragile beings. But while the opposite is constantly being demonstrated, women who take the lead, women who confront their inner monsters, the things that make them feel guilty when they choose to pursue careers because it's not natural, or it's not normal, or it's not acceptable in a society for a woman to make this choice because she's expected to be the one doing the unpaid work of staying at home. We really need to partner with men, with other people in our societies, for us to actually make any difference, to actually confront these challenges, to challenge conventions, as Silvia told us, really challenge the conventions as Maria Montessori did. It means we have to be willing to do things differently. If we want things to change, you can't stay within conventions. You have to break through. And a lot of us have to connect with this powerful being that lives inside of all of us and make different choices to really create a different future for all of us. When we were together in Liberia, we really heard a lot about empowering communities. So really stepping out, putting yourself on the line, putting your experiences, everything you have on the line to lead in the dark and inform people the little that you know, gain their trust, and let them know that the solutions are in their own hands. I found these such powerful lessons as I was there with all these people who have constituencies, are at the top of their countries. I did the little that I could do, which was just call my mother and say, can you buy those Veronica buckets and put it at the entrance of your house so that at least people wash their hands? I was filled with so much fear and concern because I don't live with my mother, and she's also, above 70. I wouldn't be able to handle it if, of course I would be able to handle it if I had to, but if anything would happen to my mother, it would be devastating, as I can imagine it is the same for a lot of people who have the privilege of still having their mothers. But it was really mind blowing for me to listen to people talking about leading in the dark. And it really made me very curious about how can you support people? How can you support a leader to lead in the dark? How can you join in? You know, you have the first adapter who says, okay, fine, it's dark. Let's go. I'm with you. You're not alone in the dark. Let's join. And then we all join and we have a movement of people in the dark. We don't know where it's going, but we have to trust. We have to believe that this is going somewhere. And all of this is because we live in these interconnected systems. And as Silvia said, you know, the empowerment of women is linked to the empowerment of children. Now, the world that we're living in today, as Silvia also described, we are facing horrific things. You know, gender-based violence is on the rise, right? Women are facing horrible situations at home. People are locked in at home with in abusive relationships. Child marriage is on the rise. This is deeply linked to increased poverty. People cannot afford to raise their children. We need to empathize with these problems rather than just criminalize it. These are human beings making choices that are horrific. They might not be able to make other choices. It might be based on certain beliefs, but it might also be based on a lack of options. Are we still there? Yeah, okay. So, you know, a lot of, I've done some work in cocoa growing communities where we go in and we say, child labor is bad, stop the child labor. And I agree, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to advocate for child labor, but we must empathize. Why is a child working? It's because people are underpaid. It's because school systems are not able to absorb these children. It's because the teachers are not able to work full-time there because they are underpaid. These are all interconnected problems that keep children out of schools, that keep girls out of schools, that put young girls in early marriages. We cannot afford, because we've made everything about affording money. We cannot afford to educate a child. We cannot afford to have a free, a liberated woman out on the making money, owning resources. So these are, in fact, power struggles because they are dominant. And when I say power struggles, it's about dominant narratives. It's about having a narrative that is so dominant that there's no space for another perspective. There's no space for another way of looking at things. Next, so children are getting married at a very high rate. If you want to know numbers, please look up the UN reports that have been published about this. Children are dropping out of schools. They've been denied a school. I mean, people are really at risk. And for us to really confront some of the solutions to this, we want to go to solutions. We have to empathize. We have to understand these systems. We have to understand how they're connected. And we have to empower ourselves to put the solutions in our hands so that we can respond. So that empowerment means choosing. Leadership means choosing. It's not all about being at the top of some sort of system. It's about within your abilities, taking charge and using your agency, making choices, making steps to do what you can within your abilities. Because if we don't do this, if we continue as we are continuing now, on one hand, there's all this devastation, gender-based violence, child marriage, children dropping out of schools. On the other hand, billionaires made more billions this year. This is unfathomable to me. It's difficult for me to fathom what a billion is, and it's not because I'm not intelligent, but it's, you know, it's just so much. And to imagine that someone is making even more money at a time where millions are losing, are going hungry, are out of school, their futures are sold into marriage. They're billionaires making more billions. How is this possible? So, to end, I would like to call on any billionaires who are on this call. If you're there, share your money. let's try and create more equality in the world. It's not just about money, is it? Let's try and share resources. What are you doing with those billions? Let's advocate for more equal share of resources. Let's advocate for these. What is billions? What is that? How can we use that for greater public good than the accumulation on one side while the other side is losing over and over again? These things are connected. These things are connected. And when you are not okay, I'm not okay. And when I'm not okay, you're not okay, because we are connected. There's an old um, African proverb. I don't know who said it, and someone told me that it's an African proverb that says, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. Now, I see this as a strategic choice. What is it that we need now? Do we need to be thinking about going far, or do we need to be thinking about going fast? What is it that our society, our interconnected global society, asks of us right now? Is it speed or is it longevity? Because I have the feeling that what we need is the far right now. We need sustainable, sustainable societies that live in equilibrium with our natural brothers and sisters, so the plants and animals that we're also destroying in the process of what we call progress at the moment. We need to go far, and for us to go far, we have to go together. And for us to go together, we have to properly realize how interconnected we are, that it is a joke to believe that you are an individual who exists alone and makes choices on their own, free from everyone else. I think if this year, this pandemic has shown us anything, it is how interconnected we really are, and how our choices really can make a difference, can affect each other. And so I will just close off now to say a few things. Let's challenge conventions if we want change. Let's share resources equally if we want to go far. Let's be humane to each other. Let's be caring. Let's be okay so others can be okay. Let's make others okay so that we can be okay. Let's embrace this idea of interconnectedness, as complex and as difficult as it might be. And close your eyes and allow yourself to be led in the dark. Thank you very much.